You know, they say if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all.
If you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all.
Nothing nice to say, but Aldo NICE.
I ain't got nothing, no, nothing. I ain't got nothing. I ain't got nothing nice to say. I ain't got nothing nice to say. Oh, I ain't got nothing, no, nothing. I ain't got nothing. I ain't got nothing nice to say. I ain't got nothing nice to say.
So I won't say nothing at all.
I ain't nothing nice. You hear me?
Whoa, welcome to Nothing Nice to Say. It's your man Aldo NICE, and I got two of my esteemed colleagues with me this week, and we're gonna have a conversation I've been wanting to talk about, man. I've been teasing this conversation on the podcast for a couple of weeks that I wanted to really kind of dive into it. So I said I want some intellectual brothers to have this conversation. So without further ado, I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. To my left, I have my man Just Devaughn. And I mean, that means I introduced you.
Me. You already introduced me. So, yeah, it's Just Devaughn.
Okay, and there you go. And to my right.
Duff here.
So I got Duff and I got Just Devaughn. And like you might have heard once or twice them on the podcast talking about one situation or another. But the thing I really wanted to get into was wokeness. This podcast is going to be real woke. We're going to be woke today. I mean, we had to wake up early on a Sunday morning to record this, but we wanted to talk about woke things, man. Let me ask y'all a question. Why do you think that I asked you to be on the woke podcast, Devaughn? I don't know. What do you think? Why do you think I asked you?
I think as we talked about, I said something about wokeness one time and you laughed. So yeah, we going with that. That's what
do you think that I think you're a woke brother?
I don't think anybody in our group uses the term woke seriously at all. Like, it's nothing against it. It's just like, we was always like, oh, you know, we know about this stuff, whatever. It's like a new group of people just put a label on it. Like, hey, all that stuff you're supposed to be doing, now we calling it woke.
Now
I was like, we were just calling it people. But I was like,
at a point, it was just people. It was them.
It was just our natural kind of way in which we thought about the world, thought about society. But it's the younger people that really came along and gave it a title called woke.
Yeah.
So if people from the outside would probably, if they heard our conversations or if they heard our interactions, they would more than likely deem it as woke.
You think that people would think of us as being a woke circle of individuals?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so, and I would say so because maybe not in the vernacular as woke, but because we look at society, we think. Really, like we're critical about what goes on. We discuss things that aren't necessarily just pop culture or something that's just kind of a lackadaisical kind of topics. We do talk about, you know, things that go on in the world. And so people would maybe see our interactions in the way that we think about things in a very nuanced way as woke.
It's interesting because it's and there's levels to this. Y'all got me even starting this conversation. I'm coming up with more questions as I speak. What really kind of a thing that I noticed when I started doing these Nothing Nice to Say interview series, we started with the Black Coffee Company, and you know, obviously you guys went to Xavier as well, so you guys know. You got to say a little bit about your background throughout this podcast, but you guys know that they were also our college classmates. And on their website and on their Instagram page, they're selling merchandise that says woke on it. And they have it as a noun, it says an adjective, and it says a state of enlightenment, to be self-aware, intentional with actions and choices. And they use that as their definition of woke. You know, it's interesting in that way that they're saying it's a state of enlightenment. I don't know. It's interesting because we look at woke people as other. Like, I look at the woke individuals as other than myself. And I think it's interesting that you started it with saying that other people would look at us as being woke. Mm-hmm. Now, who are those people? Are we saying hood niggas? Like, I'm putting it that way.
I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's like, probably from our generation, we would classify not being woke as something. Like, we would classify the negative. Like, we might say, oh, that nigga sleep. Or something like that. So I think this generation likes to this generation is very big on labeling things. And it's not, I'm not saying that's a positive or a negative. It's just like one of those things where it's like, I guess it is more interesting that they focus on the positive, where it's like, yo, like, I'm not just going to look at the people that aren't doing right. Like, I'm focused on the woke folk too. Like, the people that are doing good, like, I recognize that person. Like, oh, he woke, she woke, that kind of thing. And, you know, they definitely better at selling stuff than us. So it's easy to put woke on a shirt, and then it just kind of catches, it just kind of takes over.
Absolutely. Like there's a cool factor to the wokeness, and then
you think woke is cool?
I think that you would want to be woke than not woke. As far as what I see on social media right now, woke, I believe, is a state of mind, or not even a state of mind, but more of a state of being in which one ought to be. And that, as Devaughn said, if they do, this generation has done a good job of kind of classifying, you're either in or out, right? Yeah. So then due to that classification, it can be a way to say, like, you know, this person is woke. If you're not woke, then you're in the state of ignorance. You're in the state of the outsider, and you, I guess, for all intents and purposes, we don't want to be not woke, right?
So okay, I think in my life, if I have to look back on when I mean, we always kind of understood who was woke and not woke, I guess is the thing. What the seminal moment in my childhood of watching it on the big screen was that episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when Will and Carlton were trying to get in the fraternity, and Big Brother, whatever, Top Dog or whatever his name was, didn't want Carlton. He was like, we don't want that type of brother in our fraternity. And it was this whole thing about how Carlton was like, you know, not woke. And Will was like, you know, he's like, we like one of us. So I think it's interesting that y'all saying that even with when, like, in our formative years and when we were in school, we looked at those who weren't woke and we pointed at that and said, you sleep. And I guess that the converse of that is that we're not sleep, but we weren't calling ourselves woke.
I mean, you can go back further, like Spike Lee School Days. It ends with him literally yelling, wake up. Wake up. But it was kind of funny because I'm like, even with that, he was yelling wake up at everybody. The whole everybody, even Lawrence Fishburne's character.
Big Brother Lone,
who was super woke. Like
wasn't he the one yelling it though?
He was the one yelling. Yeah, he was. He was the one yelling wake up. So I guess that's where I kind of come like. Okay. I think that's that caricature of.
But did you look at those
super woke brother? Okay. And you know
who's not necessarily woke. I think
not. Yeah, he wasn't super woke.
He maybe had one. He had his eyes open for many issues, but there were times in which he may needed to open his eyes on other issues. So
and his eyes was completely closed on certain other issues where it's just like okay.
His nose was completely open for that for his little chick too.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
right.
But I mean, look, that kind of hit on another turn because I mean, one of the things that you see on Twitter and online is you get a lot of Black women that make the complaints about like so-called woke brothers, where they're like, you say you woke, and it's like you can see all these things about what is happening to the Black man and da 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 da. But like, as soon as we bring up one issue with a Black woman, you like, why you bring that up now?
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean?
So there's levels.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's levels,
to it.
And so we use woke in a sense, or many use woke in the sense of I'm racially aware of disparities.
Race has everything to do with woke,
right? Yeah. And so, but then we can kind of push back, and maybe some of these woke brothers and sisters who aren't also aware of some of the gender inequalities and the ways in which maybe race and sex, meaning, you know, gender, kind of interact with each other, so that they're very woke in the sense of, say, like police brutality, right? But then they may not be aware of, say, things that are happening to, like, you know, sexual assault for Black women or women of color.
Or R.Kelly keeping women.
It depends on who's saying woke. Because when you go online, I guess with that, when I see young Black men saying woke, it is to racial issues. And when I see Black women saying woke, it is to racial issues and gender issues. And
Black
there's usually there's a dividing line that comes between that. Because when it is solely gender issues, you don't necessarily see the wave of woke
Brothers.
Mm.
Well, I mean, you know if y'all listen to the pod, you know my favorite term and people I like to go at all the time is the Hoteps. And them Hoteps, I'm going to read that definition for you again. An Afrocentric brother, usually insecure, who claims to be woke, but actually isn't. Unless you're a straight black man in a Hotep's eyes, you're responsible for the destruction of the black community. You're misogynistic, homophobic, transphobic, conspiracy theory aficionado. He will fill your head up with so much pseudoscience and ill research for historical quote-unquote facts, you'll be ready to bash his head in with a Google search engine. That's the Urban Dictionary definition. But that's the definition we talk about all the time with those Hoteps. They take and they contort that wokeness and just kind of put it in their own thing. But I want to take a step back to something y'all said. School days. Let me go back to school days a little bit because I think y'all were getting somewhere that I was interested in there. In school days, you said the Lawrence Fishburne group. I mean, we call it who you want. I don't know who it was supposed to be, whatever. But there wasn't Spike Lee and Giancarlo Esposito.
No.
They wasn't them, right?
No.
At all. They were the counterculture.
Mm-hmm.
At when we went to school at Xavier. Do y'all remember when the Kappas came out in the yard and it was Halloween? And then one of those guys came out with a outfit on that said, "I'm the Kappa slapper," and he had like some boxing gloves and was walking around. He was from Cali, and he was walking around on the yard trying to like talking about he wanted to fight Kappas, and it was a whole bunch. There's always, even in our college experience, right? Yeah. There's that, the Gamma Phi Gamma, whatever they were. I guess I can't remember the fraternity.
It was Gamma.
It was the Gamma Dogs. Gamma Dog. Yeah. There were the Gammas, and then there were Lawrence Fishburne's group. My point is, when we got to school, obviously I can speak for me. I became the Gammas. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Maybe not necessarily in that way, but I pledged. Yeah. I wasn't the counterculture who was. Now, I like to think about myself at the time as being like, I'm kind of anti a lot of the things that they're doing, but I'm still in the fraternity for the reasons of brotherhood, scholarship, and service. I'm not necessarily in it for all of the rest of the stuff, but I'd be lying to myself if I didn't look at that movie and think that the non-woke brothers were the cool ones in the movie. Like, to me, they were the cool ones. They was the one with Tisha Campbell them. Right. Good or bad hair, see if I care. They was the ones with the AKs. They wasn't the one and the Deltas.
Well, and I think that's the issue.
And the SG and the Zetas. I'm sorry. Why is that funny? Why is that funny to y'all? I'm not laughing.
I love the Zetas. I love the Zetas. But that's some of the problem, and it's kind of illustrating what Devaughn was saying about this term being it's almost a line in the sand. You're either with us or you're without us. Even though we may not have had those terms, we still had those dividing boundaries maybe in college. And so like,
always been there.
Yeah, it's always been there. And so like we have those things. And so where we divide, and I don't want to go into the cliche of like a divided black community. I don't think any community is really cohesive all the time, but those are the ways in which we like have been kind of had this divide, this woke versus non-woke. But then what is it? Like, so then is a fraternity man not as black or pro-black as, say, the brothers and sisters that were making their own soap and their own, oils and stuff.
Y'all didn't think they were weird? Those people in college who were making their own oils and using black soap and sitting in trees? Y'all didn't think they were weird?
At the time, I did.
There was only one dude sitting in the tree.
There was one dude sitting there. But there's always been
at the time, even now, I think they were weird.
At the time, and back then, there's always been this kind of vein of we're natural and we're going back to Africa, and this is that, and we're trying to eschew everything that comes from white culture. And then there's the other group that's like, because even with Greeks, there's always been a black person like, how you put Greek letters on your body. Yeah. And there's always going to be a Greek person like, that's not what it's about. Yeah. So there's always kind of been that like dividing thing where I'm like, okay, so if they did Egyptian lettering, would you feel okay? But now even the vein is like, Africa ain't just Egypt. Like, that's what the Hotep thing is always fun to me. Because I'm like,
Swahili.
You picked the one country that is like closest to Europe,
the whitest
Africa. Like, I had Egyptian friends like in high school. They was classified as white. They put white on their license. Like, that's just what it is. But it's like you kind of reduce Africa to an Ankh You Nas it out. Like,
Yeah.
everything that
Is
Nas...
Is Nas the prototypical Hotep? Everybody used to say that.
Yeah.
Spitting that fake science, that pseudoscience on his rap
yeah.
songs.
Pseudoscience.
Like when the math don't add up.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and it's...
like 36.
Yeah, and this...
So I was like, this ain't...
That's 22.
This don't.
Well, you know, and this is kind of one of the things that kind of underlie some of these divisions and even the Hoteps. Like, again, I agree with Devaughn. Like, you know, you're taking Egypt, which again I get, right? Like, Africans in the diaspora like have had their background like stripped away from them, and so Egypt, of course, like big pyramids, big, you know, like of course it's like, okay, they were African, and some of them were Black Africans. Like it's more complicated, right? They didn't think about race in that way, but then even thinking about just the access to like different things. I'm thinking about one of the richest men that have ever lived was some king in Mali who controlled, like who controlled the gold, right? And he was more West African, which a lot of our ancestors are, right? You know, but having that, but because of white supremacy, we don't really get a lot of access to that true history of who we were. So the Hoteps kind of going, I'm assuming, because I'm assuming they say, okay, Egyptians.
I always think it comes from like, I feel like the nucleus of it is a good place. Like, I'm like, I want my people to look at something that they can aspire to. But then it devolves into something else, basically because of lack of knowledge. Like, I mean, you're like West Africa. I mean, is that in Nigeria where they're just now getting the Benin statues back? Like, I mean, these are like rich cultural statues. Like, so you'll see, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, even them, like, why do you want your statues back? It's because we want our people to know that we made these statues. Because if you don't see your ancestors doing something like that, you just think, I mean, we could go on Twitter now and how many people think, how many people of your friends say, "Oh, I never go back to Africa"? The whole continent, continent. Like they're like, I mean, "Oh no, I'm much rather." Guilty. But I'm like, "You'll go to." I said, I mean,
somebody asked me one time.
You'll go to Thailand.
Somebody asked me one time.
But you don't want to go to Africa.
What continent? If you had to go to another continent to visit, rank them from 1 to 7. And I'm like, Antarctica is last. Okay, I live in North America, so we got 5. I'm like, South America, you go to Brazil and stuff, in Colombia, that seems fun. I mean, Europe, I mean, you can go to the Louvre and you can go to Paris and the Eiffel Tower. That sounds like something that's on a bucket list. Oh, you can go to the Great Wall of China and do some stuff in Japan might be fun. Oh, Australia's probably industrialized and there's probably something that's cool about I've seen the Sydney,
the city thing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll go see some Aboriginal indigenous people and whatever. So Africa was last. Africa's always last place.
But the whole thing about that is all. It's marketing.
It is
like all that stuff is marketing, and there has been.
And if you want to go to Africa, you want to go to Johannesburg.
Exactly.
What white folks.
That's all it is.
Or Egypt.
Because
you want to go to the top.
There is a
because it's AIDS everywhere else. That's what they try to make you think.
But there's a concerted effort to make the entire continent of Africa seem
the
like
dark
it's
continent.
Not like it's just this is a wasteland. When I'm like, yo, most of the world's natural resources come from Africa. China making a huge push to get into Africa. Like, I mean, like there are a whole lot of Russia's making a big thing to get into Africa.
But I'm scared of those child soldiers on the back of trucks. With Coney coming, I don't want to get stolen.
But that's the whole thing.
But they act like that. Yeah.
They act like, and I'm like, yo, if you are leaving the United States, and I tell people, like, look, you leaving the United States, we are at the top when it comes to wealth. Yeah. Like, it's just a fact. You are always, I mean, this is why when you go, I don't really like going to a lot of countries sometimes.
Because you gotta,
Because it's just like, I'm not experiencing this country. I'm literally just, go visit the Caribbean. And all they tell you is, stay on the resort.
Exactly.
Don't leave the resort. Because if you leave the resort, you leaving the resort in your poorest of clothing stands out.
Yeah.
Because, and what they don't want to say is the disparity that this country creates and other things is just so
We went to St. Martin. We had to drive through the man.
You just like, yo. And then it's kind of like, yo, you can't just be out here, like, if you're in the United States, you know where to go. I'm not going to go.
You got to have a tour guide.
I'm not gonna go to
Everywhere.
the hood wearing gold necklaces and not know nothing and just be like, see me shining. So when you go to other countries, I feel like that's what a lot of Americans be doing. They just don't know. Like, I'm like, you just pulled your $1,000 phone out your pocket.
Right.
Just, hey guys, want to take a picture?
Yeah.
And you're just like, yo, and like people are starving. So it is one of those things where it's like, that's everywhere. But for some reason, Africa has gotten the
poorest of routes.
marketing, like,
Yeah.
yo, don't come here.
It's supposed to be that. I mean, it's that's part of the whole. I mean, a book that I don't remember who put me on. It was I don't know if you guys have read it, Guns, Germs, and Steel.
Yes. Great book.
Jared Diamond. Like, I read that a long time ago, and it just kind of helped you to understand how societies came to be, why Africa is where it is. But I mean, they definitely put it in there that it was universities and it was culture and everything else. I mean, you can fit 2.5 United States inside of Africa.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Africa is vast, and people don't really understand that as much as they should, to understand that there's so many different pieces of culture there. But we're talking about a lot of things, and something you kind of touched on right there was economics and how America has a different set of, like, we're at the top of the food chain when it comes to economics. I want to step back and talk a little bit about wokeness and how a lot of times, you mentioned this recently, that people conflate that with a certain financial limitations based upon you being woke.
Yeah.
Can you expound upon what you talked about before?
I mean, I just said a lot of woke people. I said it in a funny way, like I was like woke.
Yeah, you didn't say it as eloquently as I just said
is broke, but that's what I said.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it wasn't that. It was like, and to go back on like what you're talking about, the Hoteps, a lot of people that I see that are, sometimes they use this idea of wokeness to point out the fact that I am not making it because I am limited by these other outside factors. And so you can lay head, but it's also like, yeah, okay, Hotep dude, I know you talked about all these factors that are limited, but I mean, nobody told you to get like 8 girls pregnant and not take care of nothing. Nobody told you not to get a job. Nobody told you not to do this kind of stuff. And I don't want to fall into like these are stereotypes of black people. This is like, I will see in examples like people using this as an excuse to get it. I'm like, this is not all Hoteps. This is not all black people or anything like that. But some of these people out here, and people, man, it's dudes. Like, when I'm picturing it, I'm picturing like the dude that's saying it like, I can't get on because, the government.
They won't let me.
You just like, and it's a vague, there's always this weird, vague entity that keeps them down. It is the man. And I'm like, yo, look, I understand there are entities out there and they ain't vague. You can point at them. Like, if you want to say the prison industrial complex, cool. We'll talk about ways that you can avoid those kind of things and move forward. If you want to talk about the problems of politics, cool. If you want to, but talking about something like it's a unseen boogeyman and therefore I'm not going to move. Right. Because I can't see it, so I'm going to stay still.
Well, and this is where the Hoteps, for me, and people on that plane, I think they pick and choose our history, right?
I was thinking that when you were talking about it.
Like, people in the African diaspora have been probably one of the most resilient people in the world, probably in mankind, right? Thinking about slavery was what? Ended in 1863, right? Like, we're like officially, right?
1960,
2000,
right? Well, yeah, and so and that's the thing, yeah. So officially, like
Obama, y'all,
right? And so we're what over 150 years right there, and we're looking at what Black folks have done like throughout our history. So like this idea about brokenness and it being associated with wokeness, nah, not really. Like being woke, right? Being woke, or and maybe we should maybe even distinguish this aspect like of fighting the power, right? Yeah. Fighting those very things that the Hoteps are saying they're keeping them down. Africans, when they were enslaved, were also fighting the man. And so, like, the fact that, like, these newly freed people of color sought out universities, they created universities, right? They became, under the brief time of Reconstruction, they became politicians and stuff. Like, that's where the people who are claiming that because of their wokeness they can't do, like, they're being disingenuous to all of the people who have struggled behind them, trying to put us all in position to keep on fighting.
Yeah.
So if wokeness is not going to allow you to fight in the society, if it's going to make you paralyzed, then you dead weight.
Okay.
Right? You dead weight. And so that your awareness, right? And I don't know. I don't know. I also want to be nuanced as well, because maybe when some people become aware of, this kind of sick form of white supremacy, the sick form of patriarchy, all of these isms that we have in this world, maybe some people do lay down.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the natural way to do, but it's disingenuous to all of the people that have fought that didn't call themselves Hoteps, right? They were just fighting.
I don't think Hoteps call themselves Hoteps.
Yeah, no. I'm not.
We call them that.
Yeah, we're just calling them. And maybe I should refrain from calling this group of people that a Hotep.
Well, I think
right?
a Hotep is different than a woke individual, and I think that's kind of what we're breaking down. Let me ask you something. When I say this, tell me who's the first person that comes to mind. Who's a woke musician? A woke musician.
Man, I mean,
I don't know.
You don't know one.
Well,
you don't think one at the top of your head. Nothing comes to mind.
John Legend.
John Legend. Okay, cool. Who comes to your mind?
Because he just said John Legend, but before I would have never.
I probably would have said Lauryn Hill. Feels like in my head is like a woke musician. Okay,
I'll give you
a politician, a woke politician.
I do.
Is there such thing? I mean,
no.
Well, Cortez, AOC, I can't. Ocasio-Cortez. She's Puerto Rican, but she's woke.
So woke.
Bernie's pretty woke. He's in many regards. Bernie's woke.
A woke actor.
Chadwick Boseman.
I have nothing. Honestly, and maybe I'm against it. These people too successful
Sean
to be
Penn
woke.
Comes to mind. Look, Sean Penn comes to mind.
Well, and I think but Devaughn brings up a point, right?
These people too successful to be
okay,
woke.
and one more. We're gonna get there too. And a woke athlete.
Oh wait.
Just no.
Your boys.
Kaepernick, right?
Kaepernick.
Okay, so we say Kaepernick, right? I was getting there. I was taking my time. I was walking y'all up to this.
Yeah.
A woke athlete is Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. To your point that you just said, Duff, what did Kaepernick, after the whole thing, what happened? What came out where people lost a lot of respect for Kaepernick? He said that in the 2016 presidential election, he didn't vote because he was he didn't think that it mattered because both she's a crook and he's whatever.
Yeah.
It's everything you just said that we fought for these things and within the system. It's kind of like the part that's important. Yeah. That for years and years and years, Black people had to work, and it's like, okay, no, we're gonna take this bus and we're gonna walk hand in hand from church to go vote because we got to change things from within the system. I think it's that whole kind of Hotep / overly woke kind of way of thinking that says people to be like, nah, screw the system. Mm-hmm. The man, like you said, and whatever, and I'm gonna do things outside of the system. That becomes like you'll never win that way. You're just complaining. Yeah. You're at a point you're not really trying to do anything to influence change. You're just trying to do things to talk about wokeness and why you can't.
Yeah, no, and it's a very, very valid point. And now, for people who don't vote because of these kinds of things, like, I think there's a way for my advice for people like that, right? Like, because I don't think that we can always work only within the system, right? You have to have a two-prong approach. Right, you have to challenge the system, but then you also have to work within the system, and so, but you also have to be very calculated in how you do that, right? Like voting, if people literally died, right? God knows only how many people have died for your right to vote, right? So you got to do that, right? You got to do that. But if you want to operate outside of the system, why don't you run for office? Mm-hmm. Why don't we find people who are going to vote within our interests, who are not going to take, PAC money or all of this corporate money. So there's ways for you to influence the system from the outside that challenges, but we have to We can't just do one or the other. You can't just say, well, I'm just going to like go off on like off the grid and live my life. That might be fine for you and your family, but like African Americans and people of color, like, you know, you leaving everybody else out. It doesn't help. But then at the same time, I don't think that we can only solely work within the system, that we have to say, well, you know, we can have black cops and that'll reduce police brutality. That will help, right? I think that we should have black cops, Latino cops,
Community
Asian cops, community policing, but then we also need outside actors to come in there.
A high black cop population.
Yeah, and so we have to go outside and inside the system. Working solely outside is not
even so much. So I guess my thing is, like, I agree with you on the Kaepernick point. I always feel like it's a young thing too, where it's young people will get frustrated at the idea. But it's probably, I would say, we don't necessarily, older generations don't do the best job.
Damn, are we older generation now?
Yeah, we are. Damn. Somebody put a meme up and they said Ed and Eddie is 20 years old. And I was looking at my homegirl. I was like, yo, that cartoon is 20 years old and I never even seen it.
Never.
I said I
didn't know what the hell he was talking about.
Cartoon.
I thought he meant Eddie. I thought you meant Malcolm and Eddie. I was like, Malcolm Jamal.
What I've never seen is 20 years old. If you was born in the year 2000, you 19 coming up this year.
Okay. Anyway. Anyway.
So older generations, I don't think we give a part. Like, I've had that discussion of like, even the people died for this and you gotta vote. I've always said that it only works on people that are educated enough or are cognizant enough of, because my thing is, a lot of people don't vote. A lot of white people don't vote.
Yeah.
Like, my thing is like they're like, oh, how did Trump get the vote? Man, Trump went to places where there was white people and just straight up lied to them. Like, I know y'all don't vote. I'm bring back steel. Okay. And people came out the woodworks. There does like the what was her name? The Cuban chick we just talked, Colombia.
Ocasio-Cortez.
Okay, I think the biggest.
That's the one in New York.
Yeah, AOC.
I think the biggest thing about her is it's like you have to, new politicians, especially the younger ones that are trying to get it, because the Democratic Party just has it. You got to figure out what your minority steal is. Like, whatever got the people out. Like, if people vote their interest, people aren't voting.
The answer is weed, honestly. The answer is weed.
The answer are
marijuana.
Things like, look, weed, whether it
student
be
loans,
whether it be things like like, it's interesting to watch, like,
it's not even prison reform
of older people. I don't know if it's prison reform, but things like that, where I'm like, the stuff that y'all kind of jump into, like, hey, we want equal marriage. Oh, no, you got to get out there and you got to just be like, yo, we fighting. Like, it's 50% of y'all, there's 50% of us.
It's 50% what?
50% of y'all. Usually it's 50-50.
On issues, you say?
On a lot of these issues. Gotcha. So it's just like, we just going to see who we can get out. Who can get out the most people.
Right. Yeah.
The last vote we had here was Beto. Is it Beto or Beto?
Beto.
Yeah. Like, the big thing about that is you had...
his campaign office was right above here. Yeah.
Oh, that's
well, not his office, but like one of the satellites. I went and make some robocalls for him one day at lunch. Shout out.
You doing your part.
That's
woke.
I'm in the system, though.
But I mean, my biggest thing about that is him coming out and saying, like, these are the... You see now what people fight on the other issues, like, oh, he was in a rock band and he smoked weed. And you saw us like, and?
Yeah.
Like, but that is something where you also saw in this an influx of new younger voters coming out, but you saw an influx of people on the other side, older, that had never voted. That are literally like, y'all are going to change this country.
I need to come out and stop it.
And the thing is, you have to, at a certain point, my biggest problem with, like, the Democratic Party is always, like, at a certain point, you have to realize, like, that's where your vote is. It's convincing younger people to come out all the time. There's a wave of them every year. They will eventually outnumber. But what you can't do is let them... Because I do feel like, even with the Kaepernick thing, I feel like older people get frustrated with stuff like that.
Well, I think it's interesting when you say that it becomes like almost a sliding scale, this continuum of wokeness. Where you can look at whoever we would say is all the way on this one end of the spectrum who's completely asleep. The maybe not the Carlton Banks, but whomever it is, the individual who's like, no, I'm black, but I hate my black skin and I hate everything about this. There's that person. That person exists. And then there's this other person that the black man is God. And which the black man is God, but you know what I mean. It's they're completely overboard. But even within that spectrum, what's interesting is there's people who will tell you that, and I'm going to reference the Black Coffee guys. They have shirts that say woke, and they were doing some stuff where they were big on trying to get some voter registration. They were saying, I mean, you know. People do things and they get out there for what's popping to do, right? Yeah. It's popping to be like on some voter registration stuff. And I think that they conflated like wokeness with if you're woke, you need to get out here and vote and have other people voting, which is cool to me. However, I think there are people still on that woke spectrum who are even more quote unquote towards the black man is God side of the spectrum, who are like, no, I'm not voting because why I'm gonna vote? Because whatever. Yeah. And you would consider both of them looking, is there a point where woke becomes Hotep? Is that what we're saying right now? Like there's a point where it goes overboard, where you're saying that pseudoscience and you're saying the same shit as me? Okay, cool. So maybe that's something I never thought about, that there's a woke spectrum and woke is only in this 50 to 80%. Once you get over 80%, blackness.
As soon as you keep telling, like when a dude at a bar tells me, like, you know, Cosby was about to buy NBC. You are super woke.
Yeah,
I'd be like, I don't agree with you.
I wonder what R.Kelly was fit to do. He's probably fit to do something. That's why they came out with this. And you know, Lifetime is a black. I mean, a white network,
right?
Or you know, even like, and I guess the other thing too, where there was like, we were at a bar, like you said, I was at a bar, but a dude was like, "Oh, why are they trying to take down R.Kelly, but they don't want to take down Harvey Weinstein?" I was like, dog, you are so into your blackness.
You don't even know that Harvey Weinstein is taken down.
Harvey Weinstein coming down.
Harvey Weinstein is about to go to the pen. He's about to serve time.
So I'm like, my thing is, I'm like, you are so conflated in this idea.
That's neither here nor there, but Harvey Weinstein definitely wasn't as bad as R.Kelly. R.Kelly is way worse with the things that they're alleging that he did.
Nah, I don't.
Yeah, if there is levels, if there's
levels of bad, no, there's circles of hell. Dante's Inferno's got circles.
You're right.
Like Bill Cosby and Darren Sharp are way at the bottom.
Yeah, you're right.
R.Kelly's a little bit better than him because it's consensual, quote unquote. But that's children.
You're right. R. Kelly is definitely pressing the upper floor in hell. He's like, oh no, Robert, you're not getting off here.
No,
come on up here with us, Robert.
Well, but one of the things though, like where it's the kind of crossing that line. I know another thing with the Black Coffee crew is that they also talk about black wealth, right, and generating that, and so. But you can have someone who's going to cross that line, right? Who, like, again, like, because I get it. Like, they're talking about black wealth. They're talking about, like, you know, unifying and being cohesive in the community. And it's like, yes, this is what we want. But someone who then crosses what the Black Coffee, because I would say the Black Coffee crew is in that good, they're in the good spectrum to me, right? They're in the true woke. Right? They're saying, we need y'all to vote. We need y'all to start businesses. And we need, we're going to participate, but we're also going to, like, do for us as well.
It's probably a part of their awakening. When they became woke in that sense, then they realized that we should be trying to...
Yeah, so, but then...
And it's a capitalistic society, so the fact that they're trying to capitalize on it is part of being within the system, which is fine.
Part of being within the system, which is fine. But then if you cross that line, right, where you say, well, I'm only going to... I'm only going to have like black businesses, so that's where I'm gonna go to selling the soaps and then going off the grid, so on and so forth. It's like, okay, we live in a global society, right? Capitalism, right? Capitalism is tough, right? It's tough in capitalism because you're always gonna have the have and the have-nots, but it's just when you cross that line and you say, well, I'm not going to participate in capitalism, it's like, okay, like I get it, right? Or if you say that I'm only going to deal with black only, then it's like, okay, but For me, it's unrealistic because we are within the system. We have to work within the confines. And so how do you then go more of a black coffee route to say, well, you know what? We're in this system, but we going to make sure that the people within my group, right? Black people, we going to make sure black people eat. Right, we're gonna start black businesses. We want investments like in our communities, right? And so for me, that kind of that perspective and that mindset is where we need to be versus just gonna completely drop off.
Gotcha.
Because when you drop off, then you don't have the power. And if it is about getting power, you have to survey the system. Okay, this is how you get power, but then how do I distinguish myself differently than just the Carltons? Yeah. Right? Where I'm going to get a bunch of power, but then screw my people.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, and I'm going to bring this back to a little bit of something. And I mean, I'm not going to make it a tradition where every one of the Nothin NICE to Say interviews is former Xavier alumni or HBCU graduates. But a lot of, we talked about this before, the most interesting people that I interact with just in my day-to-day life are normally people who I've went to school with, and I'm unapologetic about that because it means that there's a whole bunch of people from a whole bunch of different diverse backgrounds who came to one melting pot of a university, and then we all learned a lot of things about blackness from each other. Now that I'm going to ask you this question because the idea of blackness is all tied up in wokeness. What about the HBCU experience kind of shaped the way you see what it means to be woke? But more specifically, at a young age, people when they go to college, they discover their wokeness. Especially when they go to HBCUs. You see it all the time. A little clean cut, whatever, they come in there. Like my roommate, his kid they called Brethren. Everybody called him Brethren. He got kicked out of school freshman year. He came there and he had videos of him doing like speech and debate and all this stuff, and he was a good orator in New York and whatever. And he came there, and within a month he was Rastafarian, smoking every day, like really in touch with this crowd that he was with, and they got kicked out for smoking weed in the dorm. It was some stupidity. You guys probably remember this scenario because y'all were in the dorm. Yeah. But about discovering blackness, like I think it's a tough thing, and the question I'm really asking is, what advice would you give to somebody who's still emerging in their ideas about blackness?
Ooh, I'll take that one. And I'll say this is my experiences at an HBCU kind of helped me understand blackness. Like blackness is not necessarily what you see on TV. And I preach this to my younger cousins who are considering HBCUs. You get every flavor of black at a HBCU. Like I was telling my cousins earlier, we like today seeing a black skateboarder, not that weird. Black backpackers, not that weird. In 1999, going to Xavier University of Louisiana's campus, you didn't see black skaters and surfers and, rockers and all that. You weren't, because we didn't have social media like that, right? But you get onto the HBCU campus, you had any kind of flavor of black there was. And that experience wasn't just at Xavier. Phil and people who went to Howard say the same. Everybody who goes there, you get exposed to the diversity of what it means to be black. And so like as long as and so then going like what is black? Like black is not necessarily the stereotype that you see. Now it can be, right? It can be like, but it's not necessarily that. And so we have to embrace the diversity of blackness and really just being like, being true to yourself is really what it means to be black. I think that's what keeping it 100 or being true, like whatever, all of those things are being authentically black, but being authentically black can be a variety of things.
And I guess the question I'm saying is, can we conflate blackness and wokeness? How do those things compare when you having a sense of like, I'm black and I understand, but we watch, and I'll keep quoting movies and songs because that's what we know. But there's great, smart people who came up with these movies and songs, and they like Marlon Wayans and Sean Wayans, message. There's messages and all that. CB4, I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black. Like he was the stereotypical
super
past 80%
Mhm.
Hotep. Like he
Yeah.
was past the 80% mark.
And that was
But
the
his
joke. That was the running joke in that movie.
In the
too.
whole-
He was dating white women. He was. What
Was
that
he? No.
No. That was the other one.
That was,
yeah.
That
he
was
like,
Don't Be
my-
a Menace.
My brother.
My Malcolm X.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, and I think that's an interesting thing is because the more in tune you get with your blackness, the woker you feel. But then you might lose yourself in it.
Well, you were talking about that. So, like on the HBCU thing, Xavier didn't help it. Living in New Orleans, and I would tell people if you got the chance to go to an
You
HBCU
in a chocolate city,
and if you also get the chance to live among, the only thing that it taught me was that one, we are all like exactly the same, and two, being amongst your own people takes a pressure off of you that you did not know even existed. To the point where it's like, yo, look, we grew up like when I went to New Orleans the first time, I stayed there like the whole year. Like I was like, yo, I'm here. I'm not going home, nothing. We just gonna be out. Like as soon as I got an apartment, I was just out there. And then my dad had called me or something like, yo, come home, visit your mom, da da da. So I came home and it was like, and the area we in is in the suburbs. And it's mostly white people. And I remember, like, I think I might have called Warren or something like that. I was like, hey, man, it is so weird not being like, I forgot how I've been in a city for a year where we're the majority. And so I haven't been looked at weird. I haven't thought like there are all different types of people that are in New Orleans, but they were just black people. Like, but they were all different. And I got off the fact of looking at the race stuff, and now I'm back here, and I'm like, dog. It's like now I got to be a little concerned. Like if I'm a large black dude, like if I'm approaching somebody when people are asking me questions, things like that, it's different. So I was like, if you have the opportunity to do it, because there's something different about working amongst, living amongst, transacting amongst just your own people that I don't think black people get the opportunity to. I think there are a lot of other cultures that get that opportunity to do it. And it's like, you know, we're in a country where things are, like we talk about systems and things like that. Most of our systems are set up directly against black people.
Especially, but the crazy thing is it becomes problematic because the parents in the families who choose to try to give their kids a quote unquote better life are the ones who end up giving their kids less of an opportunity to live amongst other black people.
It's one of those things where I'm like, I've talked to my dad about it because he was like, man, we came down, at least like we literally moved out here because it was a school system, but we were always bringing you around family members. We were always bringing you around stuff. But it's like we have to go out of our way to make sure that you're around black people. And it's the funny thing where it's like I see a lot of my peers now making efforts to move like in communities where it's like, it's a lot easier. Like I saw a girl post last night, like, you know, people talk about Atlanta, but I'm in DC and some of y'all might want to consider it because when your banker's black, your dentist black, your doctor's black, everybody you do transactions with black, it's different. Like it's different. You know what I mean? And I said it's difficult to explain it, but I will say it's one thing where I'm like, if you're in the part where you're a minority, the majority culture knows what that feels like. They just don't know what it feels like to be a minority. Yeah. And I'm like, that's one of the biggest things where it's like, yo, I know we're the minority in the country, but if you get the opportunity to be around your own people, do it. Yeah. Like, just try it out.
Well, I think that a thing that's interesting to me is that, and I don't want to put him on Front Street like this, but me and Rumble have had many conversations about blackness, and he'll say things about like frustrated with the system that he's in, but he didn't go to a HBCU, so I think it's. He always talks about, man, if I would have went to HBCU, this would have been happening. This would, like, he always kind of has this vision, this ideology, this idealistic perspective of what a HBCU would have been like to go to. And I think he's right about a lot of it, that he would have had a substantially different experience. I just think that it's weird that it's kind of like every black man, I feel like, if you truly have some kind of a good background, some kind of a good support system, that there's going to come a time in your life where you start questioning things and start pushing yourself towards that over 50%. And I'm using that, but everybody, like, you can close your eyes and you can see what I'm referring to when I say that. When you get over that 50% and you woke and you start, and then one day you realize, damn, I'm 75, I got to slow down. Yeah. And it's a thing that I think a lot of people don't check themselves with, and then they end up posting crap on Facebook, and they end up being at your job saying things about whatever, and you're like, dog, why are you? No, you just not applying yourself. It's not demand. It's not whatever.
Yeah.
But I think we all get there.
Yeah. And I understand, like, the system sets things up like that, but I'm like, you have to think outside of that and then help people, because you get these. When you talk about this, I really just be picturing older dude, old bitter black men that be just looking down.
Don't be old ones. Just be
like, when I say old, I'm literally talking about our age.
Okay, but because we're old, I was like,
look, man, they 40, they looking at.
I'm looking at everybody's beard who's sitting here. We all look great. We all got great beards. We all old right now.
But they on Facebook, because Facebook's old now. If y'all didn't know, kids tell me all the time, like, you on Facebook? But they get on Facebook and they post these rants about, we talking about art. Like, look, if there's a concrete documentary about R.Kelly, and it's all the stuff that, as an older person, it's funny because we were talking to a girl yesterday and she's like, I didn't even know R.Kelly married Aaliyah. And I was like, how old are you?
Yeah,
and she goes, I'm 24. I go, oh, okay. That makes sense.
It was before you were born.
But this is I said, so kudos to them and the people that made the documentary for being like, yo, all y'all don't know this man. So let me compile this in a concrete way so y'all see what this is about. If that's your time to be like,
years of stuff and put it in 30
exactly.
minutes.
And it's like, let me just show y'all what this is. And it's like, first of all, if you are age, I don't think anybody saw that and was like, everybody that was watching that was like, oh yeah, he did do that. Yeah. Oh yeah, he did do that. Nobody was like, yeah. You know what I mean? So for the most part, so when they do that.
It's a lot of shock and auto online though.
If you took your time out right then to pop open your phone and hop on Facebook or Twitter or something and be like, but what about? And I'm like,
they've been saying some. What about Jerry Seinfeld?
Like,
some. What about Steven Tyler? And I'm like, what does that have to do with R. Kelly statutory raping little black girls? Like, what does that have to do with anything?
Where I'm like, this is not, like this whole. I know this is run by black women, but these are white men behind these black women trying to take the black. No, these are people that are telling you, like, look. Like when women are telling you, I got raped, or this is happening, and this is why, and we need protection, and y'all come out and go, man, fuck all that, da da da. You see why people don't say stuff. It's crazy.
And this is where, like, some of when you cross that 80%, right? When you cross, that's
what I've been thinking in my head.
No, because the analogy is it's perfect, right? Once you cross that 80%, you somehow then think that it becomes narcissistic, right? That like everybody's against you, and it's like, okay, wait a minute. If we are really thinking in a woke sense that can help change, we need to say, well, the black man needs to find things in common with the black woman, right? We need to find things because there's power in numbers if you are in fact trying to overcome some of the white supremacy. But some of the things that I kind of wanted to interject just a little bit is that when these old bitter black men, their complaint, us, right? Us, some of us, right? Their complaints are valid, right? Like there is there is no man in a room with a cigar, right, trying to plot the downfall of black people, but white supremacy is a thing, right? And I never want to discount that for anyways. And as a person, I'm a sociologist, so I look at structures, I look at inequality, right? And so we can track a brother not getting a job. Maybe he didn't go to the right schools. Maybe his parents didn't have some of the same ways and opportunities and just some of the things that some of us currently are discussing had. So I never want to discount that, but as we've been talking about earlier, black people are resilient, right? So we have to take the bitterness, right? If you've crossed that 80% line, you have to take that bitterness and you have to do something with it. Like, we need you, right? If that's what it is, take the bitterness and let's do something revolutionary.
Because you got to stop thinking there's a man with the finger on the button,
right?
Because my whole thing about like, and with a lot of issues that have popped up, especially via social media and things like that, and you see how people act. The biggest thing I would see about white supremacy is not this like, I am trying to do this to black people. It's I don't really care if this happens to black people.
Yeah.
It's called laissez-faire racism, which is dangerous. That's the most dangerous.
So it's like, I understand, like, you know, like if Tamir Rice gets shot and I come to work and I'm like, yo, that's fucked up that they shot that little boy. And all of my coworkers are like, who? Like, that's the thing. There's not going to be a care because I'm like, yo, if that little boy was white, it'd be front page news. Like, that's the thing. So it's like with the Hotep people, it's kind of like, look, if you decide to fade out and be like, you know what, the system's so bad, I'm out.
A la Wesley Snipes.
If you don't care about our people,
put your black ass.
I'm going to tell you right now, they are not caring about our people.
Yes.
So the only people that's going to care about us is us. So it's like at a certain point, you have got to be like, yo, look, it's just us. Like, it's not them out there like, yo, I really just want to destroy all black people all the time. It's literally like man, look, y'all go on about y'all day.
I mean, when the system's set up and the wheel is turning,
the wheel is
like
done.
You gotta break the wheel, and if you're not gonna break the wheel, then the wheel's just gonna keep turning.
Yeah.
The wheel's gonna keep
And
going.
so
Fading out, like I think this, you just can't fade out.
That's what they want to do. They want to fade out and be like, yo,
I'm not voting.
I'm out.
I'm not.
I can't do nothing with this.
Yeah.
Da 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 da. And I'm like, and now would be
calling
the time.
things to conspiracy theories without actually having any action behind it. Like what good does that do?
And now would be, I would say, now would be the definite time for you to, if you try to fade out, fade back in, because 100 years ago, there was 100, 300, 400. There used to be a finger on the button.
Exactly.
There used to be laws and everything that was like, you're a slave. I don't give a fuck. Like, that's it. Those things are not there. Are there new laws that kind of circumvent? But it's not this direct, like, yo, look, it ain't never going to be as bad as my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather who I don't know. Like, whatever.
When you said all those greats, he was probably in Africa, though. No, you said a lot of greats.
I did say
and
that.
He was in Africa.
It wasn't,
slavery wasn't that far ago. Slavery was just great. That's it.
Great.
That was your great-great-grandfather was a slave.
You know what? That's crazy. Because like before my grandfather passed away, he was like, oh yeah, you know, we used to, my dad was asking me, so did y'all ever, you know, talk to slaves or whatever? Yeah. And he goes, we knew all the people that were slaves, but he goes, I was young. He goes, you know, it was like young kids didn't talk to adults at that time. Yeah. So he's like, those kind of things never really passed forward. But I'm walking away like, dog, my grandfather
knew some slaves.
Yeah. I say that all the time.
Like, that's it. Like, that's how far back this goes. That ain't that far.
If you were born in 1860, and let's say you were a slave for 5 years, the first 5 years of your life, and my grandfather was born in 1922. That means you would have been 62 years old. You would have been a relatively young man.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And was like, my first 5 years I was a slave. Yeah. And let's say you was born in 1853. Then you would have been like, then you could have told everybody, I was 12 years a slave.
How long you worked on that, man?
I teach math.
How long you worked on that?
I do weddings.
I'm mad that caught me off guard, too, man. I'm so mad. I was 12 18.
I was 12 years a slave, little nigga. No.
But that's crazy that was that close in time.
I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot going on. But I think the bigger part of this, and you know what, we calling this. I was gonna call this whole podcast One Thing, and I wanted to really kind of delve into woke versus broke and some other things there. And I'm like, I'm just gonna call this woke. But this is woke part 1. There's gonna be woke. We're gonna do more woke series of this pod because I think we left some meat on the bone, just a little bit more that we could talk about here. But more than anything, I'm kind of walking away from this with like. Honestly, my connotation of the word woke is lame. Like, I feel like the word is played. I feel like when people be like wearing, I'm not being a hater. When people are like calling themselves woke, I feel like that's lame. I feel like just be a good black person. Like be a model like black person. Yeah, you don't have to tell people you're woke.
Well, because I think for you it causes a little bit of you question whether or not they're genuine, right? Like are you...
if a dude had a shirt on that said "good."
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Well, I would wear a shirt that says "nice," obviously. But,
like, you know what I mean. But that's
safe.
That's the kind of thing.
If a guy was walking a girl out of the club with a shirt on that said "safe" and holding her hand, I'm like,
you're like, I get it, but you know what? I didn't think you might be unsafe until I saw you with a shirt. Like now, I'm like, why you got a safe shirt on? And you could be safe. Or you could just be having people think you safe.
But even if it is, I don't think that people who are woke or wear woke gear think that are like not woke. I just think that there's no reason to be like, let other people, I'm woke. Like it's kind of weird to me, just a little bit. It's just a weird.
I understand.
I don't doubt that they feel that they're woke.
Yeah.
But then the next person's gonna say, well, you ain't woke as me because I'm 86%. And I mean, it's a whole bunch of things. But I think I say all of that to say that this conversation has kind of brought me a little bit around to the other side of that. To think that, you know what? Woke is cool.
Yeah.
You need to be between the 50 and 80. If you're between the 50 and 80, that's a good thing to be. Mm-hmm. And who am I to be like, to feel a way? I think it's just the trendiness of the term.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because the term has been bastardized, or it's been co-opted. Yeah, I think it's been co-opted. Yeah, marketed. I mean, but then at the same time, I think about the Black Coffee Company. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, like I want them brothers, and I want them to have. And
that's why I'm like, I don't want it to sound like a hater about that
because we want them. But then if when people, and this may cause issues, but if people say Beyonce is woke, it's like, oh, I don't know. Like I get a little bit.
I always have a problem with this. Like there's gonna be like an old white politician that'll be like woke.
Yeah.
Be like,
no, Bernie Sanders is gonna say that even.
Yeah.
No, the top definition in Urban Dictionary of woke, which is where I got my Hotep definition. Woke is the act of being very pretentious about how much you care about a social issue.
Ooh, wow. Wow.
Maybe that's why I feel that. Maybe that's how
cynical.
But I know they're cynical, but
cynical. But no. I get what it is. I get where it's coming from.
The sentence they say, yeah, most people don't care about parking spaces for families with disabled pets. I wish they were woke like me.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of, I guess, maybe what breeds it.
What underlies.
To me, but maybe that was implanted in my head by the man to think that that wokeness wasn't cool. I mean, look, we're going to get out of this here on this one. Yeah. We hit up about an hour. I just wanted to say before I got off of here, I've been noticing that, see, I don't have like, I follow Instagram thoughts. I got like 2 or 3 that I think their life is interesting. I like when someone can wake up in the morning and just go work out and take pictures of themselves. If they told me that that's all I had to do and I didn't have to go to a job, I would do it too.
I do it too.
And I mean, we like to look at beautiful blackness. We're on the spectrum. But I've been noticing they got a lot of Instagram models who are like woke too, talking about white people didn't exist before 1861, and they had a post about that and the consciousness and African sculptures of black women and talking about this and that and vegans and parasites. I'm talking about Malaya, and it like I don't know what it does.
So Malaya
is I don't want to call her a Hotep. What's the word? What would you call her? Would you call a woman Hotep? I mean, like I feel like there's got to be something. She's a woman Hotep. And I have a whole bunch of names that I want to say, but all of them are bad. So I'm just going to not use any of them. But Malaya is a woman Hotep. And I think that there's a thing. Maybe the next time we talk about it, we'll bring up woman Hoteps or whatever.
But, you going to bring a woman Hotep on?
They have a few.
I'm about to say.
Yeah. We know a few. We know a few.
Bring one off for perspective purposes.
She's got dreads probably, and they're more than likely matted.
Definitely.
More than like, or one big dread. She's got the one big dread. She pulled them all together probably.
A lot of natural deodorant.
A lot of underarm hair.
Oils.
I love my black queens.
They crossed that line.
I love my black queens. All right, man. Thank y'all for checking it out, man. Thank you guys for sitting in with me.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.
I mean, if y'all want to follow these guys on social media, I'll ask them if I can post their stuff. Maybe
you can post mine.
Yeah. Well, we've already Just Devaughn. You're not Just Devaughn. You haven't went
it's
fully
not
Just Devaughn.
It's DR. No, because there's a Just Devaughn out there, man.
Really? Real talk?
yeah?
Yeah.
Oh.
Trust me, I tried to get it, and then I was like, you know what? We've already filmed all these episodes, so I'm not changing.
I would have loved the fact that I could have given you the name of Just Devaughn like I gave the uncle the name of
Nothin NICE.
All right.
I ain't got nothing. I ain't got nothing nice to say. I ain't got nothing nice to say. Oh, I ain't got nothing. I ain't got nothing. I ain't got nothing nice to say. I ain't got nothing nice to say.
So I won't say nothing at all.
I ain't nothing nice. You hear me?